I'm building a relationship, and the relationship that I'm getting is I can ask you to do something. You'll give me a positive answer. It's actually a false yes, and then you won't do it. And then if you don't even report back that you didn't do it, I'm like, dude, who has time for that? You're now a project.
Well, now it's your name that's on the line, because it's usually if that person didn't do what they say they were going to do, it was bad customer service. Somebody didn't get done something you said would get done, right?
I look bad.
I tell somebody something's done and then it didn't get done. It's like I might as well have done the lie.
You know, we always talk about having it all. That is the name of the podcast. And today we're going to talk about a character trait, and we're going to define it with a guest today that I think can literally lead to making not 2 times more money, 5 times more money, literally 10xing your business, making 10 times more money, whether you're an employee at a job or whether you're starting a business, whether you're making some money on the side. I'm going to show you exactly how you do that. By the way, if you're new to Have It All, welcome. My name is Kris Krohn, and the purpose of the show is to share with you ways of living your life that can help you live 1,000 lives. Like, think about it. Rich people, wealthy people, healthy people, people that master the art of love and connection and relationships, those people are living really full lives. And I always think that when we wind up on our deathbed, that what we're gonna do is think about our regrets. And so how do you live a regretless life? Well, for me, it just means that I got to live life at the speed of my potential, having it all. And today we're going to have this conversation about integrity. And the person I'm going to do that with is none other than Jimmy Rex. Jimmy, how you doing, buddy?
It's good to be here, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Listen, for people that don't know who Jimmy Rex is, dude, let's talk about that for a second, because the world might know you through Instagram as like, oh yeah, Jimmy Rex, isn't he like that crazy Rookie of the Year, 10 times over, super successful real estate agent guy, investor, you know, can close 100 homes in a month. He's one of the top performers. Like, is that the Jimmy that we're talking about? It's like, no, I know a much deeper, more valuable Jimmy than just that. But that is you, right? Like, if they're curious, you kill it in the game of real estate all day long.
Yeah, so I got in 2005, and I think I've sold around 3,000 homes since then. So it's been, obviously, that's been the vehicle that's allowed me to do a lot of the other cool, fun stuff I've been able to.
I never see you work, bro.
That's kind of a little trick I have. It's funny. I was dating a woman about a year and a half ago, and we dated for almost a year. And she would tell her friends, she's like, I've never seen him work. And what she didn't understand is, like, she couldn't tell the difference between when I was working or playing. It was like hanging out with my friends, doing deals, all this stuff that I love doing the most was work. But she didn't understand that that's what that was.
You know, I think you have like a super enviable lifestyle just from this notion that you get to decide when you work and how much. In fact, your work is so fun, it feels more like play than anything else. Your work takes you all over the world, connects you to some of the most amazing human beings. And I perceive you're in this financial space with your flywheel where, you know, your real estate has made you so much money that you're now buying investment properties, you're buying into restaurants, you've got all sorts of investments, crypto. You're out there in such a big way. You're in so many businesses, you're in so many spaces. And now it's just working towards something even bigger and better. And yet there's something really common, like a theme to who you are and how you do life. And it is that I freaking see you at every single networking event. Like, if there's a mastermind, I'm seeing you in it. Like, I think as much business as we've done over the years, I've seen you at more like, wait, is that Jimmy Rex over there? There's masterminds. Like, the guy's freaking everywhere. And so, like, that's what I know you like the most for, is that you're always creating value for other people. You're always networking with really successful people. And so it's like, no, Jimmy, he's not that real estate guy. He's this networking guy. He's like one of the most connected human beings that I know that people love.
Well, I kind of picked a perfect career for me. I put a lot of time into that, frankly. I did it opposite of most people. Go to college, then go into their career. I went into a couple different careers to try to figure out what I want to do. Then I went back to college because I wanted to. And for me, real estate was such a perfect thing because I literally get paid to hang out with my friends and spoil the crap out of them all day long and just have a fun time. But to your point of the masterminds and stuff like that, I had a goal when I was coming up in my 20s and early 30s. I had a goal to read 100 books a year and to go to 5 masterminds in person. So I would find these different events, whether it was Tony Robbins or Mike Ferry or whoever it was, right? And I would go to these different events because you're just learning and picking when you can immerse yourself into that location and get out of your comfort zone. And I'd go to most of them by myself and just figure it out, just go meet people and have a good time. But yeah, man, I was very intentional about trying to become the best version of myself. And so I was always willing to invest in that first.
You know, we're going to talk about integrity, and I think some people are like, wait, is there a link between integrity and the amount of money you can make? By the way, do you think there's a link?
I think making money is one of those things that you can do it the right way or you can do it the wrong way. There's a million different ways to make money, but I think having a fulfilled life around how you make money there's only one way to do it, and that is doing it through having an integrity. I'll tell you a quick example of that. I have this theory that if you screw anybody to earn something, or if you steal something, or if you whatever, if you have like a fake pair of Ray-Bans or something like that, sunglasses, right? For example, there's an energy that comes off you when you know that you stole it or you connived in order to get it. And so you put off a different energy to the universe. And so you're going to attract a lot of the wrong people, wrong things, and you're just not going to be fulfilled the same way as like the whole point of having a Rolex, for example, is knowing that you became the kind of person that could afford to buy the Rolex and to have it. If you stole it, if you leased it, if you all these other things, right? Or like just you came off inauthentic about it, or it isn't real or whatever, you're going to put a different energy out about it. And so for me, the integrity piece of that is like, what's the point of having money if you didn't do it the right way? Because it's all about who you now are and what you're portraying to other people.
You've got a formula around this idea of integrity, but before we get there, I want everyone to understand just some cool things about you. Like how I first got to know you. Years and years ago, someone invited me to go to the movie theater. And they're like, I was like, oh, great, what movie are we watching? It's like, no, you don't get it. Jimmy Rex, this guy, I'm like, who's Jimmy Rex? He's rented out the entire theater and everyone can come. Like, come bring your friends and get a seat. And so I remember going kind of curious. I'm like, well, I don't mind catching a free flick, but I'm kind of more curious like what this is about. So I get there, you had rented out this private theater, you got up in front of everyone, and then you had all these like gifts and giveaways, and you just started giving stuff away. Like, I got restaurant tickets, who's sitting in seat, whatever. And I'm just like, what is happening right now? And then you said, oh, by the way, hey, I'm your friendly, neighbor realtor. And if you guys ever need realtor needs, let me know. It was like the tiniest, softest, like cutest little pitch that just basically said who you are, but it was just value, value, value. And I remember just thinking, man, that's interesting. And now when I see you, like earlier this year, I ran into you at this one guy's multi-million-dollar house, and we were both being pitched this new mastermind that we both ended up joining. Mm-hmm. And I remember being there, and it's like whenever I look around and see Jimmy, he's always talking to people. People are always smiling. People are always laughing. People are always having a good time. And I'm like, man, whoever Jimmy's talking to, value is being created. Like, that's just kind of like I remember like in my early days, I'd go network and I'd be like nervous and I'm like shy. I'm like, what are people going to think? The self-judgment is like, this is kind of weird. This is weird. This is awkward. And I was making it awkward just because I didn't know how to just go in agendaless and connect with people. So today I want to have this conversation with you about integrity because of just who you are as a human being. And the fact that I've learned that you have a little bit of a formula around what integrity is and that it means a lot of different things for you. What's your definition of integrity?
Well, and I think it's hard to define integrity as one thing, but I think it's the way I've done it in my business is, there's a couple things. Number one is if I'm ever making any money, and this is integrity around work and business, stuff like that, right? If I ever make $1 off my clients, I want them to know it. So I don't hide. I don't take little handouts. I don't do anything where if my client doesn't know exactly what's going on. So
there's no side deal. There's no kickback.
No, and I get offered that stuff all the time, right? Like solar companies will say, dude, we'll kick you back this if you can pitch them solar. Or you get the loan officer, use me, I'll kick you back this. Like there's all these different people. And I always say the same thing. I'm like, look, if my client doesn't know I'm making that money, because dude, as a realtor, you're already making so much money off of the deal, right? 3% of the house price. Last thing I want my client to figure out later is I made $800 because like in their welcome kit, I pitched solar to him in there. I put some guy's card with, and was getting a kickback. You know what I mean? It's like, that's where you lose people because they're like, man, he didn't tell us that. And so like and then the other rule I always say is,
wait, can we just pause on that first? Because actually this is a really big deal. I was surprised when we were having this conversation earlier about integrity that I'm like, oh, integrity means something very, very specific to Jimmy. And number one, it means that when it comes to money, there's full transparency.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's really weird. There are some games where you have full transparency and there's a lot of money games where you don't. And it's like, okay, this is one of the ways it doesn't matter what Jimmy's doing. His rule is, if we're in any kind of relationship that involves money, there will always be transparency. Doesn't that sometimes though ruin deals for you or get people to maybe say no to you? Well, and it's different.
I mean, so if it's a client, right, I have a fiduciary duty. And so that's the way I'm looking. So if you've hired me, I work for you, then I will make sure no matter what. Like if some random Joe wants to sell their house for $100,000 below the asking price, hell yeah, I'll take it. Like I'm not going to tell him, yo, your house is worth $100,000 more. If he's hired me to sell his home, I'm not going to go, hey, I'll just buy it after I've listed it at $100,000. That's the difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you can obviously I do this all day. Like I flip homes, I go to wholesalers. I'm always getting deals and working those angles. But the other thing that I always say though, and this has kept me out of trouble too, because when you're a top real estate agent, you just have a target on your back, right? Like I've had people for years have been like, I just know they're watching. Cause like, dude, I forgot to put my brokerage name on my Facebook page and I got called into the board for it. I'm like, people are trying to get
watching.
me. Yeah. And there's nothing to get me on because I have this rule, which is, does everybody in this transaction know everything that they should legally know or ethically know to make sure that we're staying out of trouble? So it's like, no matter what's going on, like, I just want to make sure everyone involved knows the information. And if they do, you're good. Like, people are always like, what do I do here? Like, I'm like, tell them. Just tell them what's going on, and then you'll know. Like, and it just is a really cool way to not have to worry about, like, if something's going to come back on you later or you have to remember what you said. Just, like, always be honest about it. And, and people love that. People appreciate that. Like, people are okay with you making money. People are okay with giving you a deal, especially when they like feel like you've been integral about it. And they're like, oh, this guy was very upfront about that.
Yeah.
Like,
So you have a third rule as well, though, and it has to do with being your word, doing what you say you're going to do. Tell me about that one.
Yeah. And I learned this at a young age, but like, dude, we live in a world where it's so rare nowadays for people to actually do what they say they're going to do. And I'll give you a quick example. A buddy of mine, his name's Paul Hutchinson. This guy's one of my closest friends in the world now. He started what's now a $25 billion fund. He was one of the original partners. And one of the wealthiest guys around, like he was crushing life in every way. And I remember he got up at this networking event and he talked about this organization that was going undercover and helping rescue kids that were being sex trafficked. And it just touched my soul. And I was like, it was called Youre, Operation Underground Road.
Dude, I remember meeting Paul for the very first time. I did lunch with him and he shared with me some of the most heartbreaking stories. And I was like, man, you are a saint and a hero to have made this your life mission and purpose.
For sure. Well, it's just crazy. And when I heard the story from him, I was like, man, I got to be a part of this. So I went up to him. It was at a networking event. There was 200 people there, and he had a line of 20 people ready to talk to him. And I went up, and I finally got talking to him, and he tried to blow me off, And he told me later, he's like, dude, we had 400 people that wanted to go on these ops. Because I was like, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to be on these ops.
And for the people that don't really understand here, all around the world, you have these sex trafficking rings, and you have people like Paul and their organization that will infiltrate. And at some point, they're basically trying to rescue these kids literally out of sex slavery.
Yeah.
And it's an atrocity. It's something that you don't even want to know exists or happens. And it's also, these operations are really dangerous, right? I mean, you're dealing with thugs and knives and guns. And if something goes bad, like, it's not good.
I eventually had the chance to go on 12 of these operations, and there was a few times where
got sketchy.
Yeah, it got pretty sketchy. Yeah, but we were like dealing with people that got killed in the moment and stuff. I mean,
are you serious?
Not while we were there, but like we'd be talking to a trafficker, and like a couple days later, he showed up dead. Like, yeah, that happened twice actually. But anyway, but my point of all this was when I met Paul again, he tried blowing me off, and I just kept coming, and he give me things of, well, if you're really interested, go to this dinner. It's $5,000 a table. It's like, done, and I do it. And then he's like, well, go train with this guy and get trained up for undercover, and boom, went and did it. Anyway, years later, he and I had gone on a dozen ops, had helped rescue over 100 different girls and ops we were on together. And I asked him one time, I said, Paul, you had so many people that wanted to be a part of this. Why did you choose me, like as the guy that you always had come with? And he said, Jimmy, every time I gave you something to do, he goes, you over-delivered every single time. I never had to worry about it getting done. He goes, you have no idea. I have so many moving pieces in my life. You have no idea the value of somebody like you to somebody like me. He goes, you are so valuable to me because I know I give you something. I don't have to worry about it. It's done. He goes, and it's so rare in this world that the fact that you just did what you said you were going to do every time, that was the reason I went with you.
Dude, my experience, Jimmy, is that there are wealthy people that are waiting to make other people wealthy if they can just prove to be reliable.
So true, man.
Reliable. And I in my company, I have we use the batting average. Like if you're playing baseball, if you have a 300 batting average, that means at bat you're going to hit the ball 3 out of 10 times. Mm-hmm. I tell people in my company, I was like, well, you also have a batting average on your integrity. If you say you're going to do 10 things and you do 10 of them, then you're batting 1,000. And we just say that. Like someone does a nice job, we say 1,000. That's our way of saying, dude, you show up every freaking time. But you drop the ball 1 out of 10 times, now you're batting 900. I can tolerate that. I can live with that if we correct it. You bat 800, you bat 700, dude, you're out of my life and you're out of my world, and I'm never going to trust you because I'm building a relationship, and the relationship that I'm getting is I can ask you to do something. You'll give me a positive answer. It's actually a false yes, and then you won't do it. And then if you don't even report back that you didn't do it, I'm like, dude, who has time for that? You're now a project.
Well, now it's your name that's on the line because it's usually if that person didn't do what they say they were going to do, it was bad customer service. Somebody didn't get done something you said would get done, right?
I look bad.
I tell somebody something's done and then it didn't get done. It's like I might as well have done the lie. And so you're like, dude, you are an extension of me if you're working with me. And so, yeah, that's like the most important thing I can tell people is like, especially if you want to network with your really powerful people, if you want to be in with people that are moving and shaking and doing a lot of things, just do what you say you're going to do, because if you do, they will give you more. Like you said, they'll just give you more and more. They want you around. They want you to be a part of it. But the second that they can't count on you, you're done.
Now, there's a fourth thing that I've seen, and maybe it's a final thing, and I don't know, maybe you got something up your sleeve, but we've covered a lot of aspects of what integrity really means today. I was really surprised earlier when you shared with me that part of that integrity has to do with vulnerability. It has to do with being real. It has to do with being who you are. Because a lot of us are just trained to put our best foot forward, right? We're trained to show our best side. And I always try to figure people out. I'm like, are you real? Can I trust you? Are you sharing just your wins and not your failings? Like, how am I supposed to really size you up if all you do is lead with your best foot forward?
Yeah, well, no, I had a coach. It was a Tony Robbins coach, actually, one of his elite coaches. And her name was Melissa. And she was coaching with me for a while. And she said, Jimmy, she said, if you want people to truly want to be with you, like to trust you, to fully like do anything for you, she said you need to be vulnerable, authentic, and in integrity. That was
vulnerable,
the three. Authentic, and in integrity. And so I have always tried to make, because we make this, there's a false assumption, Kris, that if people think I have problems, they're not going to want to work with me, or they're going to think I'm a loser. No, everybody has their stuff. And so we can appreciate when somebody's like, when they're not trying to be something they're not, right? Like, I have so many things that I screw up all the time, and I'm willing to laugh at myself and just enjoy the ridiculousness of it. But when you're authentic about it, when you're vulnerable about certain things, like then people, it gives them, what's the best way to put it? Like it gives them almost like it's okay for them to be that. And especially powerful people are dying to be able to just relax around you.
Well, I think people are trying to I think people are trying to relate.
They are.
Like,
they
I want to
everyone
connect.
knows they've got their things, right?
Yeah,
So when
how do I connect with you if I can't be real?
Yeah. And it's the biggest mistake a lot of people make is try to pretend like everything's fine, like everything's put together. Yeah. And I think one thing that I try to do is just show the real side of like what I am. Like I'm very good at laughing at myself. I did stand-up comedy for years, so it's like you have to learn to laugh at yourself. If I go and I start just attacking the room, I'm gonna get shut down pretty quick. Yeah. If I can make fun of myself for a couple minutes, everyone's for fair game. Like everything's funny at that point.
You know, integrity is so important to me because this whole podcast, Have It All, it's all about this energy that you've got to find a way to meet your health potential or your financial potential or your relationship potential. And there's no real way to find your potential unless you can face your flaws, unless you can face what isn't working, unless you can face your failings. And it's really weird. We still, I think, live in a society today where people are fairly guarded and people are nervous to really be who they really are. Mm-hmm. And yet for me, like, that's a requirement if I'm going to hang out with you, because I'm going to be my nerdy, dorky, goofy, who I am anyway. And if you don't like me, great, then I'm just not going to spend time with you. I want someone to accept me for who I am, instead of like, because a lot of people look at me or they look at you like, wow, look how successful you are. You just stepped off that private jet, or look at that beautiful home that you live in, or look at your assets, or I know all these successful things about you. And it's like, yeah, and I only had to like trip 10,000 times and screw it up to get here.
Well, it's when I was in junior high, dude. I remember I was at a school dance and I hated them because I didn't know how to dance. I remember feeling so uncomfortable. And this kid came up to me and he's like, bro, what do you do? Why aren't you dancing? I'm like, I feel stupid. I don't know how to do it. He goes, nobody cares. Just dance. He goes, the only people that people like look down on are the ones that aren't even trying. He's like, just get out there on the dance floor. And I was like, well, that's something. And I just started doing it and having fun. Next thing you know, everybody's like, oh, he's the fun guy. It was like, I was having a good time. And it's the same way for life. It's like, if you're so worried about looking good or make sure everything goes right, you're just not going to make a lot of decisions that you need to. And it's like, just be able to understand that like part of life is just getting in on the dance floor, like just giving it a shot. And nobody's looking at you like, oh, this guy's an idiot. What if he fails? Like, no one remembers your failures. No one cares. Like, literally, if you fail, nobody cares. They go on to the next person. So, like, if we knew how little people cared about our failures, we would try so many more things. And so, like, that's where I'm at. And, you know, it's one of the things that people say to me all the time is like, you act like you, like, don't care what other people think. You just kind of do what you want to do. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I care, but it doesn't let me, like, I don't care to the point that it was going to stop me. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like, the other day for my Halloween costume, basically I went to Spartacus and I'm basically in my underwear sitting at Roos Chris having dinner, and nobody else was even dressed in the entire restaurant. And the whole thing to me wasn't even weird. I was just enjoying it, you know? And it was like, how are you going to come at that guy?
Oh my gosh, dude. Listen, Jimmy, I got to tell you, every time I get to be in your airspace, every time I get to just like peek in your world from around the corner, I got to say I'm always impressed. And it really is at the heart and soul, just the integrity. I love that about you. And I'm so thankful that you took the time today to share what integrity means to you in all of its different facets, because hands down, it is connected to productivity. It is connected with your financial rewards. It is connected, I think, with just fulfillment and joy or being a good person. Let me ask you, out of all the, I mean, if you've sold 3,000 homes, out of the thousands and thousands of people you met, how many people, be honest, how many people do you think today would say, oh yeah, that Jimmy Rex, he screwed me over once?
I can honestly, and I'm not just saying this, Chris, like as far as like, there might be people that bought at the wrong time or did something, but there's not one person that's like, oh, Jimmy screwed me financially. Not one, not that I know of. I'd be willing to sit there and have that conversation with anyone that felt otherwise. But because I always said to myself, it was like, what would I do if like, how would I want somebody to treat me if I was on the other end of this? Like, what would I do? And I never sold a house I went by myself. Like if I was in their position, I just, you know, and that's one of the cool things that, I mean, in business especially, people want to work with people they trust. And when you're able to tell people, like, look, dude, I wouldn't do this. Like, I actually had one the other day. The person wanted to buy a $950,000 house. I said, look, they're putting another house on the same lot right next to this thing. It doesn't exist yet, but once it's there, this thing's going to be impossible to sell. For $1 million, you touch your neighbor's house? No, dude, you don't want to buy this. And they were just looked at me like, he's talking me out of buying this thing for $950, but it was like not in their best interest. You know what I mean? And that person will be a client for life. But that's just how I'm going to do it always. And it's cool. Like when you're working hard enough, you know this, you don't need the sell. You don't need that one deal. So you're able to give people honest information. And that just over the long game, that is always going to pay off so much more.
Transparent, vulnerable, reliable. Guys, you've been talking with Jimmy Rex. Dude, thank you so much. If people want to follow you on social, where's the best place for them to hunt you down?
Yeah, my Instagram's the best spot is Mr. Jimmy Rex. And I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. I go through my DMs every day. And I
just got to do a little shout out here, by the way. Like, this guy has a world-class real estate team, I think like everywhere. And people that get a chance to actually mentor with Jimmy and be on his team and make money with him in real estate absolutely love him to pieces. And I always tell people, like, people ask me all the time, like, wow, Kris, if I ever want to be a realtor, I'm like, well, if you're not going to get a coach, then don't even try it, because the coach makes the difference on whether you're literally in the top 1% or the bottom 1 or the bottom 90%, which basically means you're doing nothing. And Jimmy, you've helped a lot of people really light it up and kill it. So for those of you who are like, man, I would love to have Jimmy's lifestyle, or maybe I'd love to, I resonate with Jimmy or some of that real estate stuff that he's doing right there. And if you want to get in the game and do the ethical double dip, which means you can be an investor, you can also have your license and earning commissions. Dude, it's a great way to make some good money while you're out there hustling in the game, doing business or whatever. So Mr. Jimmy Rex, look him up on Instagram. Jimmy, dude, thanks for being here today.
It was fun, man. Always a pleasure, Chris.
All right. We'll see you on the next episode.